Let's teach some turtles karate.
Exactly. Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to Christravaganza. This is our friend Andrew. Andrew has never been in a Princess and the Scrivener video before, but now he is.
We're sorry.
Yeah.
Apology accepted.
He did kind of warn us too, and I was just like, yeah, okay. We watched TMNT from 2007, and it was bad. It was directed by Kevin Monroe, who we looked up and has not really directed like a feature theatrical movie other than this.
He's done nothing.
And it shows. Kevin Monroe also wrote this movie, and we just have a problem with men in Hollywood writing and directing their movies, thinking that they're these like huge, badass, edgy movies when really they're just dark and boring and awful, and Coco agrees. TMNT is the second comic book based movie that Chris is in.
It also should be noted that I have absolutely no background reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Trying to give a synopsis of this movie is impossible because we just were not paying attention for most of it.
For a movie called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there was not a lot of Teenage
No,
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
we were like less than 30 minutes into this movie before I called it quits. Like, I was still watching it, but I couldn't pay attention.
It was about brotherhood.
Sort of. There's a 3,000-year-old prophecy backstory thing, and then that somehow relates to Patrick Stewart playing a rich white guy in New York. And then there's the Turtles on like another storyline where Leonardo has secluded himself for training.
There's just a lot of plots going on.
Yeah,
They didn't
April
focus
goes
on
and
one.
gets Leonardo from the depths of the jungle, but he doesn't come back at first. Raphael is a vigilante, and so is Casey, even though Casey is very clearly less qualified to be a vigilante.
He's got a hockey mask and a cool catchphrase.
I guess.
And Casey is Chris Evans.
Casey's also like the best part of the movie, which is sad in a movie about
And Sarah Michelle Gellar.
that serves to prove my point that like it's not about them, but they're the best part. Michelangelo works birthday parties wearing a turtle mask over his turtle face. So like, are the turtles like a public figure,
Right.
or are they secret?
Yeah, isn't the whole thing that they're secret and they're like, but he's like
know.
dressing up as himself?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Donnie works in customer service, which
On
I can
brand.
relate to. There's some infighting with the turtles, and Shredder's daughter is working with the white guy that Patrick Stewart's playing. He's like a bad guy, and then he's not. Also, he like falls from some height, and they're like, Mr. Winters, and Mikey is like,
Looks more like fall, get it?
I didn't even catch that.
okay, I guess we're gonna go into pros and cons, because I don't know what else to say about this movie.
Motion of animation is good, which was like the only good thing about the animation
Yeah,
style.
like the way that they moved was pretty fluid, but like the design of the characters is something else that we'll get to.
Lawrence Fishburne narration, which was like only in the beginning and then never again.
Genetically reborn in the sewers of New York and trained as ninjas.
April, which is Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. Raph is a true New Yorker because he has the accent and he talks like he's smoked 40 times a day.
But I could never leave this place.
But he's a teenager, no biggie.
Which I don't believe that he's a
He's
teenager.
the only turtle with a New York accent.
Mikey said,
I have nightmares about birthday parties.
I thought that was really funny.
April's buns, her like hair buns.
Thank you for the clarification.
They were so cute.
And then cute is what we aim for.
What you got now, gonna give it up.
So those were all of our pros. It's a lot for this movie, but I also stopped writing like, I don't know, 50 minutes into this movie. The Weinstein Company made this movie. No Shredder? They started talking about how Shredder is dead, and I was like, wait, what?
See, that's why it would have been important for me to like see a prequel or something,
Yeah.
because I have no idea what's happening or who Shredder is or how they became Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Toxic waste in the sewers of New York.
See, they didn't explain that super well.
Am I right?
Yeah,
I just guessed.
yeah.
I probably would have a different experience out of this had I either been a teenage boy or grown up with like
a brother.
They assumed that like you knew who the characters were and what was going
Yeah.
on. It's like not everyone does. You kind of need to have some kind of context.
I feel like I wrote more than one note about the color grading.
Yeah, the
'Cause
color. Yeah.
it was just so boring and gray and uninteresting. I wanted there to be like Emerald City amounts of green because they're turtles, and it's all gray.
Why are they trying to make Ninja Turtles so gritty like every single time?
Something that like kids cartoon shows does well is that like it doesn't take it seriously because they're turtles.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So like the animation reminded me of like those like really crappy straight to DVD Bionicle movies that people had as a kid.
Oh, there's like a fat character that's like a disgusting bad guy at the beginning. Jim Cummings plays this character. They would have these like infographics of just like the names of the characters pop in. Like we needed to be introduced to the turtles that way. They're the main characters. Like there should be a more creative way to introduce them to people that may not have the context for the character. Mikey's dialogue.
Oh, someone's cranky.
Except for the birthday comment.
There were a
Mikey's
few good
dialogue.
lines, but it was
Yeah.
cringy. I didn't like that they had like people teeth.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so uncomfortable.
There's
See in April.
just no context for Casey and April, especially because the very first scene that they're in together, he makes a comment,
I don't wear hair gel.
Really?
but they're dating. She would know if he was using hair gel, is what I'm saying. Casey's hair.
The art style in general was just really off-putting.
Winters, the sort of anti-villain, he mansplains.
I believe this is the one they call General Aquila.
It's actually Aguila.
She
Thanks
just
for that.
pronounces something wrong, and he's like, actually, it's pronounced this way. And we're like,
If I'm a
Who
play
cares?
devil's advocate.
He's also very vague about everything.
Yeah.
The transitions were terrible.
straight out of iMovie.
It had to be like at least 45 minutes in when Rolf and Leo had their standoff, and I still don't remember why. They really want you to believe that both of them want to be the leader, but neither of them are good leaders.
It's just weird. They're like on the same team. They're trying to fight the bad guys. Why are they fighting each other?
The movie needed to be an hour and a half.
It didn't though. We have some obvious, boring villains. I can't remember if I was referencing Shredder's daughter, I can't remember her name, or the Stone People.
I have no idea what the actual like evil plot is. Like, what were they trying to do?
They're
no
like, we need to
explanation.
send the monsters back into the portal to break the curse. And the statue people were like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna be evil.
They tried to set up for a sequel that like
Yeah.
obviously did not happen.
Yeah. The writing in this was terrible.
Didn't you tell him how weird things have gotten with the turtles?
Like, we know that Casey is associated with the turtles at that point. So he could have just said, does he know that things are weird here? And we would have been fine. So little turtles. So
Yeah.
long around
Yeah.
one time.
I was promised more sewer turtles.
I wonder if they were like, well, we can't do another origin story for this movie. And I don't think that there was like a show going on while this movie was being made, so it's not like they couldn't have done an origin story for the Turtles and like had Shredder as the main villain of the movie.
Yeah, that would have been so much better.
Yeah, because people know Shredder.
Yeah.
We don't know this stupid Winters guy. Patrick Stewart is such a wasted talent
I
because he's
know.
boring. They repeat the 3,000-year-old backstory like 3,000 times.
An evil born 3,000 years ago.
3,000 years ago.
Fine, April, I already know that. Thanks.
Saying the same thing multiple times does not equate to me caring about it more.
No. In like the big fight scene that we lost all the context for, April's wearing a metal corset on top of her like yellow jumpsuit. Maybe she's the yellow turtle because she always wears yellow.
Oh.
When Raph is in like his vigilante suit, he looks like that scene from Shrek where he's got the hat on to like
Yeah.
go into the castle.
There's a light vortex that shoots up into the sky, like in every other superhero movie, until like 3 years ago when movie studios started realizing nobody cared about that. Those are all that I've written, but I feel like there's more that we can say, except that it all comes back to the fact that there's no context for what happens before the movie. There's really very little context for what's happening during the movie. The movie is just not very well written or made. The actors are there.
Chris Evans probably took 1 day to record his part.
Yeah.
Was like, okay, send me the check in the mail.
And then he goes home to his dog. Our arbitrary rank category is, was it a product of its time? In some ways, yes, and in other ways, like a movie like this could still be made and it would be just as bad. And in some ways, movies like this are made because it really feels like the knockoff Disney movies that you see in the $5 bin at Walmart. The only reason I remembered this movie was because it had the Cute Is What We Aim For song in it.
I mean, since it made so much, it appeased the audience it was going for.
Well, because kids will
Did it,
sit
though?
down in front of anything.
Yeah.
So the IMDb score is a 6.3. Rotten Tomato score is a 4.95.
Okay.
I feel like those are both kind of high. What's my score? So it wasn't as bad as London because I don't think anything in this entire universe is as bad as London. So I'm gonna give it a 2.
I guess a 2 also.
I'm gonna say 3. That's with heavy nostalgia glasses.
So the cumulative guess score is 2.5. So the total score for TMNT is 15.75. So the next movie that I'll be watching is Sunshine, and that one I'm actually gonna watch alone. Bye! Friends, we are finally getting into actually genuinely good films. I watched Sunshine from 2007, and it was directed by Danny Boyle, who is actually well known for making, if not like good movies, then like widely received movies, or just like seen by a lot of people. Those include Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours, 28 Days Later, and the upcoming Yesterday. It's upcoming from when I'm filming, but probably not from when I'm posting this. Sunshine was not a movie on my list of movies that I had ever heard of, so I did a little research beforehand, and most of the reviews that I saw were all saying that it's a good movie, and the first like 2/3 of it are solid, and the last third is a little shaky, and I don't think that that's a wrong description of this movie. So what Sunshine is actually about is a team of 8 astronauts going into space to launch a bomb into the sun because the sun is dying and they want to essentially reignite the sun. It takes place in space. And it's an hour and a half long, so like shit has to happen. Some of the things that I had read about this movie was that Chris's character is kind of a jerk, and I really think that that's like an oversimplification of his character. I think his character just makes really tough decisions, and his character is the only one that consistently makes those decisions. Everybody else has reservations. And it's not that he doesn't, it's that he's willing to put those aside for the good of humanity much more quickly than everybody else. So on to pros and cons. And the first one is really just like a fact, but also a pro. The cast is amazing. Props to the casting director of this movie. I didn't look at who that is, but props to them. We've got Michelle Yeoh, Cillian Murphy, Benedict Wong, Rose Byrne, Chris Evans, Mark Strong, like out of nowhere. This is like the first movie that I've watched where absolutely everybody in the cast and crew really seemed to know what they were doing with the material that was given to them. There's like some romantic tension between Cillian Murphy and Rose Byrne, but they never do anything with it. They really didn't need to. I don't think there really would have been that much of a place for that in this movie. Captions were available because I bought the DVD. Space is a pro, but it's also a con. The whole project to try to reignite the sun is called the Icarus Project because they're gonna fly too close to the sun. I just thought that was funny. But it's not really funny, because it's a space movie. The sound design in this movie is foreboding and gorgeous and terrifying pretty much from start to finish. Michelle Yeoh gardens. She has a garden on board. She has a garden on board. She's so cute with her plants. She's basically the one providing oxygen and food to the rest of the crew, so they should all be thankful that she's there. There is a proper adoration of the gloriousness of space. Space is gorgeous and terrifying. Cillian Murphy has the most beautiful blue eyes. Chris has beautiful blue eyes too, but there's a lot more close-ups of Cillian Murphy's gorgeous blue eyes in this movie. Michelle Yeoh calls Chris
Fly boy.
just the sass. Wow. The tension. You get to a certain point in this movie, and it's pretty early on, and you're just like, I couldn't breathe. The movie consistently reminds the audience that the main question that is posed to the characters is whether or not individual human life is worth risking all human life. And for the most part, the answer is no. Knowing that, as an audience member, made me very anxious. Don't watch this movie if space movies make you anxious. Mace, Chris's character, is legitimately the only one with any ideas. That's not true. The psychologist on board is the one that poses going to find out what happened to the other ship from this program. This is like Fantastic Four all over again. Only this is a good movie. Searle, the psychologist, tells Kappa, Cillian Murphy's character,
We're only stardust.
it reminds you that you are just a tiny speck in the universe while also reminding you that you are made of the same stuff that stars are. I've talked about a lot of like arbitrary body parts on Chris Evans so far, but I don't know if I've ever mentioned how long his eyelashes are. Mark Strong was one of the members of the Icarus One, and he shows up again. And so I wrote, Mark Strong lived! Is it a good thing? I'll get to that in the cons. So like I said earlier, because this is an hour-and-a-half long space movie, things have to consistently get worse for the crew, because this isn't WALL-E. This is the good of humanity comes before the crew that you get to know for an hour and a half. They're pointed in the wrong direction, like towards the sun, and Michelle Yeoh's garden room just like lights on fire, and she can't save anything. Then later in the movie, she goes back into her charred garden and finds a little living plant that she calls and it is so heartwarming at like the height of the tension in this movie. And my last pro is that there is a nice little ending shot. It's a pleasant note to end on, considering the 15 minutes before that is just space tragedy. Okay, on to my cons. The first con was Chris's hair, but that's only in the beginning of the movie, and it's really only because he looks way too much like Sid from London. The first kind of bad news thing that happens to the crew is that they're getting so far away from Earth that their messages aren't going to be able to reach home before they start making their return from the sun. And then Cillian Murphy goes in and apparently spends close to an hour in this message room instead of letting his other crewmates send one last message home. But actually what I didn't like about that scene was just that like it looks like he's a meteorologist. There's a couple scenes where Mace and Kappa get into fist fights. The second one only ends because they're running out of oxygen. So Cillian Murphy has like kind of long-ish hair, and then they give him the tiniest ponytail for no apparent reason. I said before that the garden just lights on fire because of the sun, so I wrote, not the garden, like, not my gumdrop button. They eventually do find Icarus One, and I wrote down all of what happens to Icarus One as a con, but not the way that I've been viewing cons so far. This one is a con just because it is dark. And it's not even like I didn't like what was happening in the context of the movie. It's just really sad and really dark and very stressful. I was prepared for most, if not all of the crew to die, knowing that it's a space movie and that space is dangerous, but I feel like it might be a staple of Danny Boyle's filmmaking, just in that we had to relive each of the deaths like immediately after they happened. It is a lot to deal with. Remember when I asked if Mark Strong living was a good thing? It's not. So Mark Strong was the captain of the Icarus One. The Icarus 2 crew just thinks that he's dead. And then all of a sudden he shows up on the Icarus 2.
4 crew, Mace, Cassie, Carzon, and me.
5 crew members.
And then kills them off. He attempts to kill Cillian Murphy, but then the sun kills Cillian Murphy. He's also heavily disfigured from 7 years of burning in the sun. Let's stop disfiguring our villains, because we internally code that as a villain trait. and it's not. Disfigurements are normal. That just happens. Also, you barely get to see Mark Strong. I only know that he's Mark Strong because I paid attention to the first transmission that they watch from him, which is from like 8 years before the movie starts or something. For the rest of the movie, from like the point that he gets onto Icarus 2 through the end of the movie, the editing, especially when it comes to framing him, is so blurry and distorted that you don't even know what you're looking at. And I think the point is to make you as an audience member wonder what it is you're looking at, but it wasn't convincing because the movie had already told me who it was. That's why people say that the last like third of this movie is not very good. It just takes a weird turn into like horror movie territory. Space is already terrifying enough. Like the rest of the crew, Chris dies. I knew that all of the crew was gonna die. At a certain point in this movie, I just kind of accepted that. But it was also after I had already had to relive a couple of the other crew members' deaths. So the fact that he died was just like, I hated it. For me. The last con that I wrote was that reliving each death is just too much. My arbitrary rank was best outfit. I mean, the point is that some of these are supposed to be outlandish for the movies, but they all wore dark gray clothing because they're in space. There's one scene where Michelle Yeoh is wearing a tank top and sweatpants, and that's a nice look. There's another scene where Chris goes with part of the crew to the Icarus 1 and they're all wearing jumpsuits, and Chris in a jumpsuit, we already know from Fantastic Four, is a good look. The IMDb score is 7.3. The Rotten Tomato score is 6.84. My score is an 8. I didn't think I was gonna give a movie higher than a 7 before Scott Pilgrim, but this movie was genuinely very intense, but very, very good. The total score for Sunshine is 22.14. Sunshine has the highest score so far. I had never even heard of this movie until I started doing this project, so I definitely had never even seen it before. I am so proud to announce that the next movie is The Nanny Diaries. I have been waiting for The Nanny Diaries for so long. I watched so many bad movies for this, that I've been waiting to get to the good ones. And you know what? I didn't even care if The Nanny Diaries was good or not. I just really wanted something light and funny and heartwarming. And that's not what Sunshine was, but I'm sure that's what The Nanny Diaries is gonna be. Oh, I lied. Oh my god, I'm devastated. I thought I was out of the woods. I thought I was done with the terrible movies. But I'm not, because the next one is Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. And then it's The Nanny Diaries. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to click the bell below so you don't miss any of our future videos. If you're not already subscribed to The Princess and the Scrivener, please do so down below as well, especially if you'd like to see more videos on Disney, intersectional feminism, pop culture critiques, and Christravaganza. One of us will see you real soon.